Hello and welcome back to the Angry Dave podcast. I am Dave, and my next guest is Carolyn.
Hi.
Carolyn, we know each other through Laura, I guess, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you two of you met through the local comedy scene, right?
Yeah, we were on an improv team together many years ago. Asteroid, it was my first improv team here in the city.
What made you get into improv?
I was a theater major, and I remember I was in high school on a cruise ship, and it's funny. So I'd done like improv games throughout high school and stuff like that, like in my theater classes. But then I remember when I was like on this like summer trip with my family, and they had Second City performing on the cruise ship, and I was like, wait, you don't have to just do plays and musicals as an actor, like you can do this. And so from there I like went to school for it, and then I just kept doing it when I moved to Philly.
And then the type of comedy you were doing with Laura was Second City type comedy, is that right?
Yeah, it was more long form. Like with Second City is like short form, but it was it's like improv. Yeah.
All right, so explain that to people because they might not know about like comedy. Just isn't stand up comedy. There's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah. That's a really great question. So like, there's obviously stand up, which I really applaud. People can do that. I need a team on stage. I get stage fright. I need people to like play off of and like riff off of. So there's a difference with improv between long form and short form. So usually if people have never seen improv before, I ask them if they've seen Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Right.
Which is like a really popular TV show that I think Drew Carey hosted the US version, but then in the UK is where it really kicked off. I mean, the UK version's always better, like The Office, or it's the OG usually of something. But long form is kind of like long scenes where like the audience will give you a suggestion, and there'll be like long vignettes that then like inspire this play that was kind of made up on the spot.
Right.
Short form is more like mini like scenes like gimmicky games like you might see on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Right, and that's more comedy sports, right?
Yeah, that's more like comedy sports.
And that's what you're doing, that kind of stuff now, is that right?
Yeah, I pivoted to comedy sports, and I got into that in 2013.
Do you like that better than long form, or?
Yeah, it's a better fit for me, I think. I like kind of the quick style of the games. I feel like sometimes I don't know, I lose the thread of long form, or like my actor brain turns on and I get to like meta with it or something. So I like the quickness of short form.
What's your favorite thing about doing comedy? What do you like the most?
Oh, I think like on a personal level, like whenever I'm on stage, it's just such a stress relief. Like I forget about anything and everything that's going on in my life. And I just feel like it's really helpful to really re-engage with like a sense of play. I don't really play any sports, I don't like play a lot of, I don't play an instrument. So like when I'm on stage, I feel like I'm just joyfully engaging in the moment. I just really get out of my head.
Do you do any of the teaching, any classes or anything like that?
Yeah. I took a mini break during the pandemic when I was in grad school, but I was an instructor there for probably since like my second or third year. But I've taught workshops there. I taught levels 101 and 201, and then on the side of that, I also teach just on my own. I teach like improv for social workers, and I teach. I did a mini series when I worked at Jefferson, just kind of using improv as like a therapeutic modality.
Yeah. Do you ever deal with lawyers?
No, I haven't. Maybe in my class, I've had a bunch of different professionals in my classes, but no.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you ever had that for lawyers, because I would imagine that a lot of lawyers think that they're probably funny and are not very funny.
Yeah, maybe. I'll have to see. I'll have to take a poll.
All right, so let's take a step back. Talk to me about, how old are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm 36. I had to think about it. I just turned 36 in July.
You grew up where?
I grew up in Hummelstown, Pennsylvania. So usually people don't know where that is. So I describe it as being in between like where Hershey is, where they make the chocolate, and Harrisburg, our capital.
Okay. So out there in Dauphin County?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I've traveled a lot in the state.
Oh, yeah.
But just because, the law brought me to a lot of different towns in the state of Pennsylvania.
I always get excited. I feel like I always think of my like county as such a small place. I'm like, nobody knows about it, but I get excited when I'm like, wow, yeah.
What high school did you go to?
Lower Dauphin High School.
Lower Dauphin.
Yeah.
And tell me about growing up. What was growing up like in like rural Dauphin County, I guess it is. Really, is
Yeah,
it?
I mean, I would say like where I was, it was kind of like a small, quaint
Okay.
town, but around the surrounding areas, there was definitely like farmland and
Yeah.
like we were near Lancaster. Well, not so much near Lancaster, but a lot of I would say like the farmland was converted into cul-de-sacs and developments and like
Yeah.
where all the houses kind of look the same.
Okay. And then was like football big in your town?
You
Is that
know, it might have been, but I was like a theater kid. I was
yeah.
like a nerd, so I didn't really hang around. Like I'm sure that the Friday night football games were like huge. That just wasn't my scene.
Yep.
So I might have missed it if it was a thing.
Okay. So all right, talk to me about growing up. What were you like as a little kid?
Yeah, so it's funny. My love of theater, I'm pretty sure, started like because my grandparents watched us a lot. So I would usually, if my parents were busy or they were going out of town, I spent a lot of time at my grandparents, and they were like maybe like just down the street or so, like a 5 minute drive. And that's the first memory that came up when you asked me what it was like growing up as a little kid. And I
Yeah.
would sit in my grandparents' living room and just watch, what is that TV station where it's like all the old movies, like Turner.
Like Turner Classics.
Yeah, I would just like watch that for hours. And my grandparents got a kick out of it because I was just like obsessed with all of the
Yeah.
dresses and like the dancing and the singing, like singing in the rain. And I just thought it was so beautiful. And I think it's a way that they were able to kind of relate to me because it was like a
Yeah.
shared interest.
Right.
So from there, I was like, well, that's what I want to do and be. I want to be like the people in those movies. So
Right.
yeah, that was a big, so dancing, like I took voice lessons, like theater kid, like all of that stuff. Yeah.
Brothers and sisters.
Yeah. I have an older brother, 4 years older than me. Very, very different. Into cars. Was in the band, like the high school band.
Yeah.
Tricked out his Honda. Like he competed like with his Honda. What's the little Civic? Those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Did all the speaker stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And what were you like? Were you a pain in the ass, a good kid? What were you like?
Oh my gosh, I was such a type A kid. I was kind of like a show off too. I feel like I loved the arts and like I always got good grades, whereas like Steven had a very different like trajectory than me. But I would say like I was kind of a goody two shoes, almost like to a fault, you know, like
Yeah.
that was kind of like the thing that like I needed to do, you know.
And high school pretty much the same. What were you like?
I would say I was pretty much the same. I think like maybe one time I lied to my mom about going to like a New Year's Eve party.
Yeah.
Like I like told her I was sleeping at my friend Amanda's house, and then Amanda told like her mom that she was sleeping at my house, and like so we both actually just went to a party with a bunch of seniors, which
Yeah.
neither of us knew what to do because we're so freaking like I was so out of my element. I was like, wait
Yeah.
a second, like I am not the type of like high schooler that goes to parties like this. So we
Yeah.
kind of left pretty soon after we got there and just went home.
So no hanging out on the corners with 40s or gang fights or anything like that?
No, it's actually, I mean, I feel like I don't know which like stories you like to get for this, but I feel like the only time I tried to hang and like tried to smoke weed, it actually like ended up terribly. That's like another story. I mean, I'll go there too if you want.
I would love to hear it. Yes.
Yeah, so I like remember this is also like my junior and senior year, I went to an arts magnet high school for half the day. So I feel like that's when my world like really like opened up a little bit more because
Yeah.
everybody in my school was, I mean, they were white, they were like, you know, from farm country, like, you know, Christian, like Central PA folks. And so I went to CASA, Capital Area School for the Arts, and oh my gosh, I got to meet so many different people from different schools that were like a lot different than me. And so then I started to see different ways of socializing. I felt safer if I wanted to like, I think that's actually when I first like drank in high school was with my
Yeah.
CASA friends. And that's when I first tried marijuana. And so I remember like there were these two guys from Lower Dauphin, not my CASA friends, who I felt way safer with, like
Yeah.
trying this stuff out for the first time.
Right.
And I remember they were like, yeah, like we're going to meet like in this church parking lot and like smoke some weed. Do you want to come? And I was like, okay, like this is my chance to be a cool girl. Like I can handle this. Like finally, I'm not a nerd.
Right.
And so we meet in like this church parking lot and I get in the back of the car and like I smoke this weed and like one thing I know about myself now is like I'm just like I can't hang. Like I always get so paranoid.
Yeah.
And we start to drive and we're driving like they say we're going to a party. And I'm like, well, whose party? And they're like, just a party. And I'm like, well, where is it? Like, it's a party. And we're like driving further and further back into the woods.
Oh,
and
boy.
we're on the way to like this house, this party.
Yeah.
And I start to really like get freaked out. And maybe it was my spidey senses, or maybe it was the weed. Maybe it was both.
Right.
I asked them to pull over the car and they won't because we're in the middle of the woods. We're in the middle of nowhere. And I keep asking them to pull over the car and they won't do it. So I have mace on me and I basically threaten that I'm gonna mace them unless they pull over the car.
Yeah.
And they do, but it's like fucking midnight on a Saturday night on these back roads in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
I somehow managed to like find a house and I knock on the door and this poor gentleman is like visiting his parents. He was probably like in his 30s. Like he had glasses and he was like very befuddled and was like in his PJs. And I was like, I'm really sorry, but I'm freaked out. And I was in the car with these guys and they weren't telling me where we were going. Can I use your phone? And I couldn't call my mom because I was just too like embarrassed and ashamed. And so I called my brother and he came to pick me up, but he was so furious at me. Like he was like, what the fuck were you doing out here? Blah, blah, blah. And like, I thought he was mad at me, but then we got back to these guys' houses to pick up my car and I thought he was going to kick the shit out of them, but he didn't. But anyways, that shows you like how like I tried to hang and like I just couldn't. I was too much of like a square.
I don't know. I think you probably made the right decision, though.
Yeah. I mean, now that
it's scary.
As an adult telling that story, I'm like, was it the paranoia from the marijuana or was something like bad going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know?
Well, you turned out okay, so.
Yeah, I turned out okay.
Thankfully that you had the mace, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So the thing, I don't know if you know this about me, but I went to a music school from 5th to 12th grade.
I didn't know that about you. That's so cool.
Right around the corner, Girard Academic Music Program. So I went to one school for 8 years, 5th to 12th grade.
Yeah.
It was mostly music based. I played the clarinet.
Oh, cool.
Everybody was in the choir, and not everybody was.
Oh my gosh.
What was your favorite? Were you in all the plays in high school?
I was in, so I feel like I started to get more musicals than plays. So we didn't have like a huge, like, we had plays occasionally, but I was like in the musical reviews. I feel like the first time I got like kind of a lead, I was usually like a chorus person or like, I don't know, some random ass character, but I played, oh my gosh, like the best friend in How to Succeed in Business Without Even Trying. And then I played the mayor's wife in A Music Man. So yeah, it was fun.
I was never in any of the musicals, but I always did like the lights.
Oh, that's a fun job, I feel like.
Yeah, it was a fun job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did the lights for Music Man.
I have a question. What made you pick clarinet?
Oh, well, I didn't pick clarinet. So this is the story. It's actually a funny story. I wanted to play the drums. My father was like, "You're not playing the drums in my South Philly." So he said, "Why don't you pick the saxophone? It's a cool instrument." So I picked the saxophone. I go to pick up my saxophone like the first couple of weeks of school, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have any more saxophones, so you're going to play the clarinet."
Oh my gosh. I feel like that's always how it happens. Like kids are kind of handed like an instrument and told what they're going to play sometimes.
And then I played. I was like an all-city band and stuff. Nice. I was good at it. But then in 11th grade, the music department they pulled me into the music room, surrounded me, and told me that I had to choose between baseball and music.
Oh my gosh.
And band because I was screwing up in band and they thought I was wasting my talent. Blah, 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 blah. And I told them, this is exact words that I said was, well, because you're making me choose, I choose the other thing.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. That sounds so intense, like an intervention. A musical intervention.
It was a musical intervention and it didn't go the way they wanted it to do it.
Yeah.
I sort of regret it, but I was so oppositionally defined at the time that there was no way. That was just a wrong way to approach a kid like me.
I agree. I don't know. You didn't give in to peer pressure, so good for you in that sense.
Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah,
anyway,
fuck them.
So, all right. So you're in the high school. And you graduate. What year did you graduate high school?
Oh my gosh, 2006.
2006.
Yes, I have to think about this. Oh my god. Yeah.
Well, it makes me feel older. But anyway, I had a law degree by then. I was practicing.
Oh my gosh.
So what school? What college did you go to? Did you go to college right away?
Yeah, I did. I went to this tiny all women's college in Columbia, Missouri, Stevens College. I looked at a bunch of different, well, not a bunch. That's generous. I looked at 3 schools, and that I just really fell in love with it. Small women's college. They are kind of known for equestrian arts, broadcast journalism, and theater and women's studies. Go figure. Yeah, and I remember visiting it and like just really liking like the small intimate feel on campus and liking like the theater vibe there and stuff.
So did you stay there all 4 years?
I did. It's funny. It was a 3-year program because we went through 2 summers as well. So it was kind of a hyphenated, but I really just wanted to get like as far as away from home as I could. I just wanted to like stake my claim, and like that's why I even thought about UArts, but I'm like, nope, Philly's too close. I need to like really just like try out this whole independence thing.
Talk to me about that. So, you know, in my journey in life, I wanted to get away too. I didn't want to go far, but I wanted to go far enough away that I was away.
Yeah.
So I went to Westchester, which is only 45 minutes away, but it's the culture is so different.
Exactly. And I think everybody has their own like definition of far and what how much far they need. You know? It's so funny. I'm trying to think of like how to succinctly like give you an idea of like home was like a little choppy growing up as a kid, but everything kind of looked really nice on the outside, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. So like, you know, we always like I had the dance classes and Steven had the hobbies, and like, you know, we had kind of the nuclear family from the outside, but my dad struggled with a lot of things when I was a kid. And this is like not to perpetuate like any stigmas around these things, but just like my own experience with somebody battling kind of untreated bipolar and alcoholism, and also like working directly for the family business where there's like a lot of intergenerational trauma and stuff. And so all of that was wrapped up with my mom white knuckling us into this like everyone's gonna like we're gonna look like the perfect family.
It's perfect. Yeah, everything's perfect.
Yeah, everything's great. So you know, as long as we get to the dance class and we go shopping for the perfect outfit for school.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and see what I can make for myself. And it's funny, like that's why I think I also gravitated towards like theater is I'm clearly if you have a regular 9-to-5 job or you work for the family business, it means you're not happy. Or like everyone says that getting married and having kids means you're happy, but my parents did this and they're miserable. So I don't know if I want to get married and have kids because that recipe or that equation didn't work for them. So it was kind of me being like, all right, I'm going to go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum of what I was told equates to happiness to see if that is maybe my recipe for success.
Yeah. I was raised by teenagers, right? So it was always a struggle. Thank God I had my grandparents. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents as well. And I needed to get away to try to make a normal life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I've said this a million times. I don't know if this applies to you, but I think I would have been like my dad was basically an out of work carpenter most of my life. But if my dad was a successful lawyer, I probably would have been an out of work carpenter.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a really interesting. I like that analogy. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I just needed to be so different.
Yeah.
I needed to be different than everybody in my life. Like I grew up hanging on corners. A lot of people were selling drugs. I was always on the periphery.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was just going to be different.
Yeah.
So again, like if I was probably like in a suburban beautiful house with a great upbringing, I probably would have did the opposite.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you said something too about like making your normal. Like it's your normal.
Yeah.
It's what your stability feels like. And I think sometimes like, man, 8-year-old Carolyn would fucking love what my life looks like, but my mom, I don't think she's very approving of like what my normal looks like now, you know? So I think it's all about what makes you happy though.
Yeah, it is. And you gotta find that. Yeah, that's a journey in and of itself is to realize that it's your life.
Yeah.
And you don't need acceptance from anybody but yourself.
Exactly. That's 100% true.
And it's a very liberating day to have that day when you get there. It's a hard place to get though.
Oh gosh, yeah. It takes a long time.
So you graduate what year?
2009.
And then what do you do after that?
I come to Philly for an apprenticeship at the Walnut Street Theater, where I am an audience services apprentice, which is basically a fancy way of saying house management.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned a lot managing an 1,100 seat theater. Yeah, and just I kept saying to myself, like, oh, like, I'm not going to stay in Philly, like, for the next 10 years. I'm going to be one of those women who, like, lives in, like, 10 different cities. But, like, I just kept I just loved it here. Like, and I just
Yeah.
kept meeting people, and I kind of like pivoted into like becoming a teaching artist, and one thing happened after another, and I just really, really loved it.
Yeah. And were you always involved in the arts when you were here?
Yeah, pretty much, for my first 5 years here, like after that apprenticeship, I tried to take a swing at like, well, I went to school to become an actor, right? So
Right.
I did the whole audition thing and really gave that a go for the first 5 years I was here, and did improv on the side, but teaching artists, for like that's where as an actor you go in and you teach like after school programs,
Yeah.
summer camps. It's a great side hustle,
Yeah.
in addition to like waiting tables and everything. So I was kind of involved in that for a while, but for me, I just everybody has a different path,
Yeah.
with the arts, and I personally was like, I need more stability.
Right.
Like, I don't want to just be Carolyn the actress. I want to be Carolyn who has enough maybe income to like take a yoga class or like travel, or I'm
Right.
much more than this. I think for a long time I was like, I'm Carolyn and I'm an actor. And I was really holding on to that part of my identity
Right.
until I was like, wait a second, it's not failure if I let myself maybe pivot into a new part or a new phase of my life.
Right. And yeah, and still have that, like you still are involved in it.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually influences like a lot of like my work today too. So yeah.
So, sorry. So you did pivot, you go to corporate America, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you do for a while?
So I worked for a tech marketing company, and I was an AE, an account executive, which I still don't know if they use that title correctly there, but I basically had to call to book leads for sales people at tech companies. So like if HP was one of our clients, I would book leads. Like I might call a school and be like, "You need servers? Like let me like set you up with this guy." And so I like learned it was interesting. It's actually like I enjoyed that job in that, man, I gave me like an associate's degree in business or like IT, because I learned a lot about
Yeah.
IT that I never would have probably, and sales.
Do you think that your arts involvement helped you in any way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like the sales script, I mean, it's kind of like understanding how to like position and communicate with people. And it's funny, like a lot of the AEs is an entry level job. They offered to train you. So there were a lot of artists that actually like were kind of funneled into that like training program, because we all had these kind of skills of communicating, active listening, like,
Right.
pivoting. So I definitely think it helped.
How long did you do that for?
I was an AE for about a year or two, and then I stayed there for 5, and I actually ended up getting promoted and working my way up. And by the time I left, I was my God, they changed so many different like fucking like corporate jargon. I was some sort of like customer success director, or like I was like 2 or 3 different types of managers, or I don't even know anymore. But I was
Right.
some sort of director.
And then when did you give that up?
So I gave that up in, I want to say, 2019, and I gave it up for like a very specific reason. I was working at that job and just like hated it, and
Yeah.
like it was sucking my soul out. Like I didn't care. Like I had like I had the worst clients. They were like, you'd think, I was like, we're not saving babies. Like, we're not doing heart surgery. So like, I get that sales are important, but like, I don't need a nasty gram. Right. And it was a very toxic environment.
Yeah.
And right around like the time that I was really doing some soul searching, I was like, man, like I'm no different than my dad. I'm stuck in a job that I hate, that's slowly like making me miserable. And I'm trapped here by shoulds, by I'm doing the thing. I'm working in high rise. Like it was all the shoulds of images. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm really no better than what I said I didn't want to be.
Right.
And so right around that time that I was like assessing, like, okay, how do I pivot? Which is really hard to move industries. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I was having a really hard time pivoting because my LinkedIn and my resume was just all freaking tech.
Right.
And I can't remember the exact year. I should know this, but my father passed away. And that was a really big moment for me, because I just felt like it was kind of like a really changing, it was a pivotal moment. And
Yeah.
I was like, I need to listen to my gut, and like I need to like live a life that I'm meant to live, and that's not full of shoulds. And
Yeah.
my dad kind of died surrounded by his ghost and not listening to his intrinsic voice. And I was
Yeah.
like, I need to do that for myself. And there's a larger story about how I came to the decision of what I wanted to do, but I ended up quitting and going back to grad school to become a therapist.
And so you're in grad school for a couple of years?
2 years. Mm-hmm.
And then you are now doing therapy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. It was a long road to get here. I still can't believe that I get to say I'm a therapist. I just feel like I've literally been thinking about this since 2019. And, I just feel like it's a real privilege. And in addition to the work I did in graduate school, I feel like a lot of the times my own trajectory and healing and what I've learned personally through getting through trauma indirectly really helps me and informs the work I do with clients.
Don't you think a lot of therapists are that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think you have to have some personal connection to the work, or else why would you want to sit and listen to really dark, sad stuff all day? I feel like you have to feel moved or called to do it. But yeah, I mean, we always, in social work school, we always joked around people have their own shit, and sometimes it can be a little toxic, so you got to work through it so you're not bringing it into the therapy space.
Yeah. Do you enjoy it?
Oh, I love it. I mean, some days are harder than others, but I will say even the most stressful days are better than the most stressful days at my other roles. I think getting to hear how people think, understand how they think, when I say, I feel like I sound so corny when I say this, but when I say it's a privilege and an honor, I really mean that, because I don't know, I'm not even presupposing that people think this about me. So I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but I don't know. I just think of my therapist has helped me get through some really some tough stuff. And I feel man, if I could even just help people get to a happier place, because everybody deserves that.
And people are giving you the privilege to be in their minds.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is, I'd imagine that it's hard to do, and and that trust that you have to have with somebody else is pretty amazing.
I always also, because you're right, you're kind of poking around and you're being a co-investigator. I'm always let me do this really gently, because you don't want to fuck around in here. It's not cool to be reckless,
Yeah. And I think that having your own trauma probably informs that as well.
I would say too. Yeah. I think I mean, I don't know. I think because I know how delicate and fragile and important it is, I think lived experience can really help you kind of go in with the right purview or tone or whatever.
Yeah. So, I had a similar experience with my father. My father, again, he was a father at 19, turning 20 years old. And he was so afraid of failure that he never tried. Mm-hmm. And he basically, he became a failure only because he never made an effort, because he was always afraid to put himself out there, and just sort of wallowed in that self-pity and depression and the why me, and it always goes wrong. It was, it was that attitude. So I couldn't be that. Yeah.
And it's scary to see how a story or a narrative can really change it's something that's simple. It's not like a ball and chain. It's not a cage, but it's like a cage of your own language that you use with yourself, or stories that have been woven into your psyche from your family. It's something that it's not, you can't physically grab it, but it's crazy how it can really hold people.
I mean, I struggled with that thought, that I was never going to go right for me. Just the idea that it was there was going to be the pitfall at the end. I was going to fall off the cliff eventually. And it took, I don't know, 15 years of being out of the house to realize that, no, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
That I really can make my own life, and I can make my own success, and, small failures don't really mean anything, and you just keep going in any event. But, so that's that, again, that those simple truths that become part of you that aren't necessarily, that hold you back.
I think of it I don't know, maybe this is where my artistic background comes in, but I equate it to muscle memory. If you, you said, it took 15 years, you have to keep working the new muscle, the
Yeah.
muscle that's like has self-compassion, has like this new way of walking through the world. Because man, that other muscle, like I think of like a left and a right hand thing. Like man, my left hand, like the arm that's doing the reps of the trauma and is used to this environment where things aren't predictable, or all the stuff, all the tropes of like maybe like an environment that wasn't super healthy for me, like that, those, I have so many reps, or on
Yeah.
that arm. Now my right arm is in this space where like I have healthy relationships, I have healthy coping skills, but it's so like it only has 8 reps instead of 200. So it's
Right.
about just strengthening and getting it into your muscle memory on the other
Yeah.
side.
Like for me, for me, it helped to start writing
Mm,
and to start expressing it in written form.
yeah.
I
Hmm.
didn't really do so much therapy, but that was my therapy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Was there something that helped you?
Yeah, I love writing. I think the muscle memory thing, like just having more and more lived experiences. I think
Yeah.
healthy relationships. I think like I always say, like I call my friends my chosen family, because
Yeah.
I really relearned how to love myself through experiencing healthy relationships.
Yeah.
And like and don't get me wrong, I had some friendships and like some relationships through my early 20s when I was still figuring out the kinks.
Yeah.
But I think for me, relationships was a big healing vehicle.
And
And
just realizing that it didn't have to be that way.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
That there are people that don't come with that same baggage.
And also really paying attention to really getting self-aware about how, like maybe my baggage is ignited in certain company and I need to be mindful and considerate of that, because like
Yeah.
I might be like oil to somebody's water, and like maybe I'm better suited to like keep company with somebody else just based on what we both are bringing for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, Laura and I talked about that actually on the podcast that comes out tomorrow. Just about I have realized in my life that I like the party. I like the party.
Mhm.
I like the fun,
Mhm.
and I'm okay. Like, I can go to the edge and I can walk away from it.
Mhm.
And I've always, I'm older now, so it's less.
Mhm.
I get less closer to the edge. But when I
Mhm.
was younger, I would always get closer to the edge and not step over. But
Mhm.
I can be a toxic person probably for people that don't have that skill.
Yeah, that's a really good insight.
So,
Yeah.
again, we can all be, even if with the best intentions, we can still be toxic for each other.
Yeah. I think all the time about like, how if I get into a headspace with someone, is it me or is it like a younger part of me that still needs work?
Yeah.
There's always that too.
All right. So you are where you're at now. Let's talk about that. What's going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. So speaking of relationships, I feel like I literally was just thinking about this. So my fiance Jordan, I feel like the relationship with him has been an amazing thing, like of relearning about like what love looks like. So we're living together. We've been together for 3 years. I'm working full time as a therapist at a community behavioral health agency, and yeah, still doing I'm not. I'm doing comedy sports about once a month, and so just kind of like prioritizing like what I don't want to say like stability, but I feel like whenever people are like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Nothing. I
Yeah.
got fucking nothing to share with you." Like I just am going to work. I'm just like going through the motions, like trying to take a Zumba class. Like it's great.
But are you happy?
Oh yeah, it's almost like I feel like I can't. I don't want to say it too loud. Like it
Yeah.
makes me scared. Like, well, I'm like feel like I'm getting verklempt saying this. Like I'm actually the happiest I've ever been in my life,
It's
and
a good thing.
yeah, but it's almost like whoa, like
Yeah.
fuck, I'm good. I can't say it too loud.
Yeah. Lean into it.
Yeah, and that's I think it's. I was reading something about that the other day. Like it's a trauma response to feel
Yeah.
like
It is.
wow, like you get to be happy, and that's okay.
Yeah. I've been there a million times. That I'm not supposed to be happy.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed, just live it.
Mhm.
Because what's the alternative, right? If you don't and you lose out
Mhm.
on that happiness, if it all goes to shit, then it all goes to shit.
Yeah.
It's not going to change anything.
Yeah. I'm also thinking too, as you're saying that, like me embracing my happiness, like makes me feel sturdier so that I can show up for other people.
Yeah.
Like I try to think of it as like the airplane mask thing.
Yeah.
Like if anything, if it helps me, it's a way to also give back, I hope.
Yeah, but I mean, but show up for yourself though.
Yeah. True.
You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
don't have to wait.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to wait any longer.
Yeah, that's true.
That's just some advice for somebody who's I've been in that same place and not a
Mhm.
million times, but I'm
Yeah,
exaggerating,
yeah.
but 100 times in my life where I just feel like this is all going to go to shit at some point.
Mm-hmm.
That, just be careful. Just be careful leaning into it, but fuck it. I mean,
Yeah.
you have one life to live. If you're happy now, lean into it.
Yeah. It's like a free fall. It's like a
Yeah.
trust fall kind of.
Yeah, right. It is a
Yeah.
trust
And
fall.
I'm the person who's going to catch me.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
All right. Next 5 years, what's going on? What's the plan?
Next 5 years. The goal is I will have I met my 3,000 hours for my clinical licensure. So when you're a social worker, you kind of like, you take the test and then you have like 2 years of being in practice and like, getting your hours, and it's kind of like your residency. So I finally met those 3,000 hours. So I'm fucking like signing up for the test. So yeah, in the next year or two, I hope to have my C, married with Jordan, hopefully have a dog. I don't see us moving, actually. Everybody asks us that. He owns his condo. We're happy there. We don't need a lot of space. And maybe closer to like the 10-year mark, maybe have my own private practice. I'm not sure how I feel about that yet, owning a business. But yeah, and just lots of traveling and good memories. Traveling is like a big thing for me that I really, really love, that brings me a lot of joy. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the simple plan.
Yeah.
Main thing.
So I hear no kids.
No kids. Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of a decision I made I think like a little while ago, and then was really able to lean into it when I found a partner that was on the same page.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I often think, I know people give you a hard time, especially parents or stuff, about stuff like that, but it's either or. I think I could have had a perfectly fine life. I'm not going to trade them in now.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, there are a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. And I think I'm glad. I feel like, sometimes I always worry. I'm like, I'm not yucking anybody's yum. And I'm so happy for people that do have them. And I'm always afraid I'm like going to offend somebody by saying I don't want kids. But I'm like, hey, like I'll be an aunt. I'll come and babysit,
Yeah, I wouldn't feel anything about it.
Yeah.
Whatever makes you listen, your life is going to have a lot more freedom. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But anyway, next 5 years, you guys want to stay in Philly?
I think so. The one city that we've been curious about is Seattle. I visited a friend there once, and like I really just fell in love with it. So like of all the I kept like, during that time when I first moved here, like I mentioned that I was like, I'm going to live in all these cities. Like throughout my years of traveling, I haven't found a city that I'm like, man, I really want to live there. But the place that has come closest has been Seattle. So I don't know, like who knows, maybe in 15 years we'll live there. But that's kind of the rough idea.
Tell me about the most influential person in your life. Who has that been?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so. I feel like I'm torn between. I feel like the first thing that came to mind is like I feel like my therapist, just because like I feel like I've been seeing her since 2013. But also I don't know. The other part of me wants to say like my dad, because I think of him I think of him almost every day. And like, I think of like the things that he could have done and like wished he could have done. And like, maybe like I sometimes really conjure like the healthiest parts of him. And like that's kind of like what I think about sometimes when I'm moving through my life.
Yeah. I try to use my dad's life, both the good and the bad, as just a lesson for my kid, for my kids and for myself.
Yeah.
Right. That even though like there is still a legacy there, a legacy of good and bad, and we can just improve on the bad. I mean, that's the way I try to think of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just thinking like, I feel like, there was so much good with him. And I think, he just didn't really have enough time or maybe resources to really get to explore all of it. So I'm going to try to kind of do it in his honor.
That's an awesome way to think about it, I think. How about the most influential event or biggest event in your life?
I feel like I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm being a little judgmental of myself right now, but I'm going to bring it back to when I lost him. I mean, losing a parent, like really, I mean, it's very different for me personally than losing a grandparent. And it really reoriented all of my values. It really helped me get like real clear, real fast on like what matters. And it really shows you kind of also like, I think weddings and funerals, in my experience, kind of really like remind you your family dynamics and what kind of patterns are at play.
Yeah.
And it helped me again reorient and get clear about that and like what role I was playing within that dynamic.
So how about a drunk or high story?
Oh my God. So I'm going to tell this story. I feel like if I send this, I'm going to send this podcast to my friend Sarah. So I was I actually had gone wedding dress shopping with my friend Sarah, and we were all like going out afterwards and celebrating, and like we had gone out that night and we were drinking, and so I have a habit when I'm drinking, like I love to get home and like have a nice like delicious bunch of snacks. And this probably night was no different. So we've been celebrating all afternoon. I get home and then I fall asleep on the couch and I dream about eating this chocolate chip cookie. And I'm like, my gosh, like I keep biting into this cookie and like it's not breaking off. And I'm like, why is these chocolate chips are so hard? Why is this cookie not breaking? And I wake up the next day and I see one of our stone coasters on the ground with a solid bite out of it. And I'm like freaking out because I'm like, wait, like, do I need to go to the hospital? I'm like looking at my teeth in the mirror, and I run to the trash can and look in the trash can, and like thank God I like match it up like a puzzle piece, and thank God it fit, but I hid it underneath the other coasters because I was too embarrassed. Jordan knows this now, but I was like, I can't fucking tell him this. This is like so mortifying that I ate a coaster in my sleep, but he knows now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How about a pee, puke, or fart story?
Oh my gosh. I feel like pee, poop, or fart. I don't know if I want to tell about the one time I shat myself. I'm not
no, I'm gonna ask you that. That's a different question.
That's a different question? Okay. Pee, poop, or fart. I did one time when I was traveling. I was at like a hostel in, I think it was not Berlin or Prague. Well, anyway, I was like, me and a different Sarah were like unpacking, and we had been traveling all day, and we get into like our little bunk bed room, and of course, like that we were much younger, and like this is pre-Jordan times, but we were like unpacking, and these like cute European boys come in, and like we're all talking, and I'm like that one of them is like flirting with me, and I fucking like you squat down to open my suitcase. I was so mortified. I've never farted like that in public before.
Was it like a mouse on a motorcycle fart? What kind of fart were we talking?
It was like a mouse on a motorcycle, but like it was loud enough that like it was obvious like that I had farted. Like everybody knew what I did. Yeah, and I was like, well, there's no romance happening here later. So,
all right, I want to know about the shit story.
Oh God. Please. Okay, so this was in college. I was at a coffee shop studying, and I was like studying for this test. And I like when you down like a really sweet latte. Like that's the elixir, right? Yeah. I don't know if anybody have that experience, but I was like drinking my latte and I was like, I just got to finish this page. I just got to finish this page. And I kept holding it and holding it and holding it. Pretty soon I was like, oh, wait a second. Like I waited too long. And I run over to the bathroom and I'm knocking on the door and there's only 2 bathrooms because it's a little tiny coffee shop in this college town. And I'm desperately knocking on this door. I'm like, I'm going to shit myself. I'm going to shit myself. And I'm squeezing as hard as I can. And I shit myself. It just started to happen. And right as it happened, the person opened up the door.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And I go in and I'm like hysterical and I'm like trying to clean myself up. And like, luckily it was only like a 10-minute walk home and I had like jeans on. Yeah. But I think I called my mom and just started like bawling because I was like, why did I shit myself at 2:00 on a Saturday at a coffee shop?
So what'd you do with the underwear? Did you throw them out or did you just sit in it?
I had to walk home. So, the underwear. I think I didn't want to leave them there. I was too embarrassed.
So you kept them on?
I kept them on. I sat in it. And then I walked home and I think I put my jeans in the bathtub. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
That's a lovely story.
Oh
Thank
my
you.
God. You're welcome.
I think you're the first woman to actually admit it to really shitting themselves on this podcast.
Yeah.
People have admitted to like almost shitting themselves, but nobody has actually admitted. Most of the men have fucking.
I will be a trailblazer for that. I think women need to talk more about it. Me and my friend call IBS hot girl shit. So that's real hot girl shit.
That's fun. But all right. How about a time that you caught somebody or got caught having sex?
Oh my goodness. That has not happened to me. I do remember when like I was a kid being like oddly like I think when you're like a kid you like say things you shouldn't, and I remember there was like this week where I kept telling everybody like randomly at the grocery store and the post office, my mom and dad took a shower together, and like that's like the only thing I can remember. Thank God I've never heard them. I don't think anybody's ever walked in on me, and not that I can remember.
And how about any college dorm stories, anything like that? Oh, well, you went to an all-women's school, so that was...
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like I feel like it wasn't, it was kind of just normal. I can't think of anything too crazy. MU was right down the street, actually, so there were like crazy college parties there, but I mean, we were theater kids, so we'd be like, okay, tonight is we're gonna like wear costumes, and it's like the 7 deadly sins, and so we're each gonna dress up like a sin, or like, so we.
I don't know, Carolyn, because I remember band kids. I don't know if band kids are the same as
theater kids.
But band kids were fucking touching each other.
I know. Well, we did technically have guys on campus, but so that's the other thing. They were called apprentices, but they weren't actual students. So we did have guy students. But now I wish, Dave, I can't think of anything too crazy.
Band kids and Catholic school girls were a great way to touch a vagina.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure. I'd believe it.
All right. How about some advice that you would have for the 18-year-old version of yourself?
Really just trust your gut. Yeah. It's going to feel so hard because a lot of people around you are like going to have opinions. But like, and maybe, I don't know, maybe sometimes your head and your heart might be arguing with each other, but like, use your spidey senses, trust like your intrinsic knowledge because it's right. It's usually trying to tell you something.
And take I would just add that as if it feels like a chance, it's the time to take it.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that. Yeah. There's this Rumi quote that I read like I was having like this like I don't know, I took a trip to New Orleans where I was like soul searching when I decided to leave my job, and like I saw this Rumi quote and it says there's a voice that doesn't use words, listen.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like right when you should take that chance, like you're saying.
Yeah, I love it. What do you think the 18-year-old version of you thinks of the current version?
That's the thing that makes me want to cry is she'd be so proud. Good. I think she'd be surprised. Like I think 18-year-old Carolyn thought that she'd be like in New York City, like acting and dancing, or she'd be like an actress. So this is not exactly like what I thought, but man, if she saw like what she's doing and like that she's just like happy and trying to do her best to be a good person, and like I think she'd be like, what the fuck? We did it. Like we're here. Like we're doing this cool stuff. Like your life looks really good, Carolyn.
Yeah. Living your own identity.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How about the 25-year-old version? What would that version of you think?
Man, I feel like I want to go back and tell her, like, just don't date the next 5 people you're going to date. Like, just, my gosh.
Just skip it?
Yeah, just skip it. Like, I mean, those people taught me a lot. I mean, I'm probably where I am because of those things too. But, yeah, she would be like, huh? But she'd be like, all right, cool. Like, I'm good with this. She might be a little more like, I feel like stubborn, I think, but to take advice, but she'd get there.
Yeah. All right. Now here's the part where I ask my 20 questions.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah. Do I just answer in one word, or is it like
no? Okay. However you want to answer.
Okay. All right.
This is your show.
Okay. All right.
All right. So it's the Angry Day podcast. What makes you angry?
Oh, people talking in the quiet car on the train.
Yeah, that's people just not following the rules.
Yeah, yeah, or people talking at full voice, like at the gym, like, dude. And I hear them outside of my ear, like just loud talkers. Is my point.
What is that? What is that? Like the lack of understanding of how you.
It's etiquette.
Yeah, or how you're viewed by the world. It's I struggle with that.
Yeah.
A lot. That's my anger. That's where my anger comes from is I spend so much time in my own head and trying to see how I, how the world responds to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Ditto.
And that when people can't have any self-actualization, it drives me bananas.
I feel like I walk through my day-to-day life just constantly apologizing. And then I'm like, what? The audacity of those people not to give it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Same. All right. What makes you happy?
I feel like this sounds so stupid, but like mindfulness, like I feel like I get excited when I'm like walking down the street and like a dog is like I catch a really candid moment of like a dog doing something cute or like a bird or like a kid. Or sometimes like if Jordan and I are just being really stupid and like being really, really silly. So I think little moments like that actually bring me a lot more joy than the big moments.
Yeah, they're just the simple niceties in life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How about sad? What makes you sad?
I need to stop just judging my answers before
Yeah,
I say
no,
them.
go for it.
Death. A couple weeks ago, I think seeing people going through that grief process,
Yeah,
whether it's like holding like a client's grief with them or actually like just seeing, I feel like I've seen a lot of people like actively grieving in real time, like in random places the last couple weeks, like not at work, like
right.
in randomly like throwing ashes, or I'll like see them throwing ashes at a fountain in Philly and I'm like, feel like I'm not supposed to be there. Or like I was in the ER with Jordan a couple weeks ago. He got into a car accident, but he's fine, minor sprain. But like I actually like, I saw someone who lost someone that night.
Yeah,
And it was just, it brought me back immediately to what that feels like.
yeah.
So it makes me sad for those people.
Do you find that you are more in touch with things going on around you by what you do now?
I think it's not even so much what I do now. I think I've always been like that because I grew up as a hypervigilant kid because of the
Yeah,
household I was in. So I think it's a blend of both.
yeah.
Yeah.
How about what is most important to you?
I being true to myself.
Yeah,
Because I think that kind of helps. Has a ripple out effect.
your best quality?
I'm empathetic.
Explain that to me. Explain that to us.
Yeah, I feel like it can also be my worst quality, but I feel like I really try to be sensitive and like think about being in someone's shoes. And I'm always trying to kind of think of people. So I try to have empathy.
Yeah, so that was my next question is your worst quality. Tell me why that can be your worst quality at times.
I think like maybe it could at times it has shown up as like when I've been more toxic in my life, or also like it is kind of like maybe I take care of others before myself,
Yeah.
or I gaslight myself, and so that leads it to a whole nother kind of can of worms as well.
Yeah, giving people too much string.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and not getting those toxic people out of your life
Yeah,
sooner.
boundaries. It makes boundaries really, really tough too.
What makes you most unique?
I feel like that's a hard question. I don't know, maybe like I think my I feel like I kind of am very like experiential, like in that I'm kind of like I'm like a crunchy person. I'm just like always looking for signs from the universe, or like that's kind of how I live my life. I'm always like kind of looking for, all right, there, what's the universe going to show me today? I mean, maybe a lot of people are like that, but
Yeah, but what do you think? What do you think that like the best quality that you bring to relationships? I guess. Like,
mhm.
let's think about it that way.
Yeah,
Like
um,
other than being empathetic, and
yeah,
anything else?
um, I really think like I've with that, I feel like everything has like I hate how this sounds, but like everything does have a lesson in it.
Yeah,
Like I try to think of like my experience has really helped me understand like how to show up in different ways, and I feel like it has helped me admit when I'm wrong because
yeah,
I've wanted people to be able to do that for me.
yeah,
So I don't know, I feel like there's little things where I'm like, all right, like this is supposed to happen, this has happened for a reason, or like this is a lesson or something like that. So I always feel like there's little tiny like snippets, and like you know we're all kind of like, I don't know, we're all part of it. Like,
yeah.
like as like the tide's going in and out, and like I'm like going on, like my tide is just my life. It's my treadmill. So everything that happens is part of like the natural like evolution of like what's supposed to happen over the course of things.
Are you an advice giver?
I always try to make sure people want it before I give it.
Yeah, I don't. I don't ask if people
Yeah.
want it. I'm a little bit headstrong that way.
Yeah.
We come from the same place, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I offer advice all the time.
Yeah, I
So
feel like you asked me that because you can tell I am. Like
yeah,
I love to give advice. I'm like, oh, Carolyn, don't do it if they don't want it.
yeah, no, I hear you, and I respect that. That's
Yeah.
probably the way that I should be, but
No shoulds.
yeah, but I don't know. But anyway, I like to give advice in a way that I don't like to tell people what to do.
Mm,
I just like to give them how to think through it.
yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, I can't tell you what to do in your life, but I can tell you, the things that you have to think about.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Because again, that's something that I never had in my life,
yeah,
and I always want to do it with my kids all the time. Like they get annoyed by me, I'm sure,
yeah.
but I do it with my friends and people. These young kids that I run into with doing some of the activities that I
Yeah.
do.
And the thing is, they'll probably be like, oh, whatever. But then 5 years from now, they'll like be quoting you.
Well, right. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. It might not hit right away, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So, how about any one thing that you would change about your life?
My gosh, Dave, these are really deep questions. I'm trying to
Yes.
think.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's great. I feel like sometimes I wish I was like, I didn't get so like stuck on things. Like I ruminate a lot and it's like to my detriment. And like, I wish I just like fucking could get my head out of that space sometimes.
Yeah.
So maybe that's more about myself than my life.
No, but that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
how about the world? Anything you would change about the
Oh,
world?
so much. I mean, that's like feel like
A podcast in
yeah,
itself.
and I feel like I don't even have the language to do it justice. Like, but just systems and like I think a lot of like I don't know, we all like live and work in these systems and sometimes like the one problem we have is like there's so many other factors that control it and it just like, makes me really angry and sad. So those systems, I'll just
Yeah.
say that to keep it succinct.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, just things getting in the way of actually making improvements.
Yeah, yeah.
How about an everyday struggle?
An everyday struggle.
Like me with Italian meats. I love them.
You love them? I love it. I'm trying to think. Like, so I don't say waking up. Like not letting the little stuff get to me. Like when people are like rude or inconsiderate, and not letting it like fucking make me really anxious. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
take a lot to make my chest tight with that anxiety feeling. So I think that's like every day being like, all right, why is your chest tight? Remember, there's no actual threats here. Like
Yeah.
figuring out like what like how to not let the little stuff get to you.
Did you suffer from more anxiety like growing up? Was that a thing that you had to fight through?
What's so interesting is I didn't notice my anxiety till my 20s.
Yeah.
And I think like maybe that's because I was like, maybe transitioning into adulthood. But I literally remember the very first day I ever had a tight chest, and it was like I was like in my car on the way home from work,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And like, "What's air hunger?" Like I started to know what that is, and so I think maybe I just had. I don't know, maybe I was like moving around more as a kid. I'd like dance and I had different ways to kind of let that energy move through me. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, I struggled with it more probably starting in my 20s.
Yeah. So I pretty much learned 2 weeks ago that I certain that I have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
That Laura laughs at me. That it would take me for her to send me a podcast to listen to from somebody with adult ADHD. But in any event, I had a lot of anxiety as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and I just that you talked about that tightening of the chest.
Yeah.
I didn't really have it once I got out of the house.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It really sort of went away when I had the ability to live my own life the way I was going to live it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to suffer through other people's decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
So, but I remember, I mean, I can remember the tightness in it. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night, couldn't sleep. I would have to go get glasses of water, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? I just, the fucking fire in the middle of my chest.
Oh God. It's an intense feeling for sure. Yeah.
How about music that you love, a little bit less intense?
I mean, I also struggle. I mean, you shared something about the Italian meats. I mean, I also struggle with like ice cream. Like, I do also love wine. Like, those are other things I struggle with too.
Yeah.
But music, I love like. It's funny. I was obsessed with the Royal Tenenbaum soundtrack for a while because it has a really wide variety of things. There's like Nico and like Velvet Underground, and then there's like some other random stuff on there. Rolling Stones, Creedence Clearwater, like Beyonce, Lizzo.
So like a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, before the thing happened, before the big cancellation, I do love Lizzo. I mean, I did love her. I don't know what's going on, but I do love her music.
How about a type of music that you hate? You hate anything?
Country.
All country?
Like, I mean, Shania Twain is fine, or like I feel like Lil Nas had like a country song kind of.
Yeah.
Like I love my truck and my country.
Yeah.
Like I love America. That's the kind of country I hate. I know that there can be like some country. Like I loved Faith Hill growing up.
Right. Do you grow up around a lot of country? I'm sure.
Yeah, I think the problem is I associate country with like there's a couple specific people that I know personally that I don't like that listen to country, and so I probably associate them with that.
Yeah, got it. How about a karaoke song that you love to sing?
it used to be Because I Got High by Afro Man, and then I changed it
I love
to,
that song.
yeah, it's so funny, right? It's such a
Yeah.
good one. What did I've been switching it up. I like, oh my gosh, Rescue Me, that one. Let me in your arms,
Oh
that
yeah,
one.
that's a
Yeah.
good one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, if you were ever arrested, what would your friends and family think happened?
Public urination. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Whenever I'm out, like at Rittenhouse Park with my friends, or I'm like out someplace with people and there's not a bathroom, I'm like, you know what? This is my like feminist manifesto. Men get to do this all the time.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna find a corner. I have pissed all over this city. I will not. I will admit it freely here. Come lock me up. Like,
Yeah. Well, me and you both.
yeah.
I'm a public pisser.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's not fair because it's so much more convenient for you guys. So
Yeah,
I've
I agree.
definitely squatted all over this great city.
I actually pissed in public with a coworker at fucking not Port Richmond, in Fishtown about 3 weeks ago. Walking walking down the street back to where I work. I
Yeah.
don't want to say where I work out loud. But anyway, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I gotta fucking pee. I don't know what to tell you.
Sometimes you can't hold it.
I'm an old man and I can't fucking hold this shit anymore." He's like, "You were just at a restaurant." I said, "I know. I forgot to pee. I don't know what to tell you." How about if you can meet anybody, dead or alive, what one person would you like to meet?
I feel my gut reaction, my immediate reaction was like Beyonce. I would love to meet her. I just think she's amazing. I feel like if I had more time to consider that, I'd probably have like a deeper like answer. But that's immediately like that just popped into my head, so I'm just going with it. I'm not gonna say something pretentious like
No. How about anybody like in your life maybe that you could talk to again?
Yeah, I think my grandmother on my mom's side, I would definitely I sometimes really I lost her when I was 8, and I'd be so curious like just to know like how she's doing, like, you know, what it was like raising my mom, like yeah, I just would love to ask her a million things.
How about you like comedy? You are a comedian. Who is your favorite comedian?
Ali Wong, I really like her a
Yeah.
lot. And I used to really be into Amy Schumer. She doesn't quite do it for me as much anymore, but
Yeah.
also all those movies like Bridesmaids, Wine Country, that's great writing
You
in
love it.
general. Yeah.
What are you most proud of?
I'm really proud that I went to grad school and paid for it myself. I saved half of my salary for 2 years and I did it on my own, and I'm really proud of that.
Do you have any, what's your like biggest fear?
I think it's another shoe dropping scenario. Like I feel like I now have this new sneaking anxiety that something's going to happen to Jordan. I'm constantly like afraid, and I don't even like, I'm really afraid of losing him. Yeah.
Yeah. I have that recurring fear about losing Laura.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, we've been together for 132 years. So like, I mean, we've been together our almost basically our entire life.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea how I would survive without it.
It's a terrible thing to think about.
Yeah. How about when it's all said and done, what would you like to be remembered for?
That I was kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that I was kind.
Mm-hmm. All right. How about that's my 20 questions, but how about any advice you might have for like young workers, young people starting out in the world?
Trust your gut. Just explore a lot of different things. Like maybe like, you know, your gut might change. That's the thing I might say, is the thing you think you want to do. Like that might be true for maybe you at this age, and then the next 5 years it might be different. So like try anything that you're like a little bit curious about. They're like, hey, that's kind of interesting. Try it. Hey, that's kind of interesting. It doesn't have to be like the absolute thing you end up doing or being the best at. Like just try a bunch of different things and just pay attention to what brings you joy.
How about relationship advice? You have any of that?
I think really pay attention. Like when someone shows you who they are, believe them, which I think we've probably all read somewhere. And also like a thorn of experience is worth a wilderness of warning.
Yeah. Expound on that part.
Yeah. I think sometimes like we see a bunch of red flags, and like that is kind of with people's actions. It's like the warning, right? Or we see little things and we kind of keep ignoring it, or like we see what people are, how we might react to them. And then like, you know, I know, yeah, did I get that quote right? I did. Yeah. I think it can, in the moment though, it's more painful for the thorn. So I don't know. We can tell people a million times, like, this isn't good for you. This isn't good for you. But then the thorn of experience is kind of what you're like, oh, wait a second. Like this hurt.
when you see people do things to other people, they will do the same thing to you.
Yeah. That's
You
a
know,
really good point.
you know what I'm saying? It's similar. It's a similar kind of a thing that I just like to remind people is, zebra don't change their stripes or
Yeah.
whatever. Leopard don't lose its spots.
Mm.
That person is who they are.
Yeah. And I think what I wish I would have done is maybe take responsibility for my own decision to maybe enter into some things. Like,
Yeah.
like, okay, fool me once, shame on you, fool me 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Then, like, how am I, like, perpetuating this pattern in my own
I
relationships?
think George Bush said it a little bit different, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
No,
Maybe.
yeah, no, it was like famous. Shame on, fool me once, shame
Oh,
on you.
really?
Yeah, it was some fucking goof that he had.
I'm going to
Because
Google it.
it was bad.
Oh, no.
All right, you have any questions for me?
What do you enjoy most about doing these podcasts?
Listening to people's stories and finding that we are all pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you will find that most people want the same thing, care about the same thing. Everybody has a little bit of an interesting life story. Uh, a lot of people come to this podcast and think, well, I don't have anything to say. And I think that they're pleasantly surprised that it comes out much better than they think it will.
Yeah.
Very normal people, whatever. I mean, everybody's normal is their normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just enjoy, I like, the reason I started this podcast is because I like podcasts.
Yeah.
I like listening to people's stories, but, I don't need to hear the same, 5 stories from from all these celebrities, right? It's all the same story, right? It's like, I got discovered and now I'm fucking filthy rich.
Yeah, exactly.
And now I have no real life experience from the time I was 22 to, now I'm 50.
Yeah. It's in a bubble. Mm-hmm.
So, I just like to hear real people's lives. I think it's more interesting to me.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed listening to them. Yeah, it's all these stories that you wouldn't know per se, unless you bumped into somebody on the street or at a party.
And it's more relatable, I think. I think it's relatable.
It definitely is. It's the last couple I've listened to. I'm like, man, yeah, like I've been there, like I've dealt with that, or that's given me really good food for thought.
Yeah, and everybody's a little bit different. So we all come from different places, have different experiences, but we all want the same thing.
Yeah,
and that's which again, it's like with politics and where we are in our country, which upsets me more is because we find ways to not relate to each other.
I think like this makes me think of like what you just said, and also I think it was Laura's brother. Like you're now reminding me like with all the different clients I see, like because I hear people's stories, right? Like for 40 hours a week, and my God, like I think the one thing I've learned from this job is I hear the same types of pains, just different. They have different like packages.
Right.
Everybody, like it's the same thing. Like I want to feel seen, heard, or this A, B, and C hurt me. And it's the same through line for every single person. And my clients couldn't be more different from one another.
Right. And I don't want to speak for you, but you tell me if this is true, that the pain really is because they're not being loved or being respected.
It always kind of ties back to something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, just you feel like empty because they didn't care about you or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the lack of consideration or whatever.
Oh,
that's the other thing. Laura wanted me to start asking everybody.
Yes.
How would you define respect? What does it mean for somebody to respect you?
An improv analogy just came to mind for this when we explain like yes and accepting something that's in a scene, like accepting somebody else's reality. Like it doesn't have to be true for you. You don't have to agree with it for you personally, but you have to like listen, like I might not have the same like lived experience as you, but like that's yours, and like I'm gonna respect that boundary. Like so if somebody enters a scene with improv, there's this yes and rule, right? And so if somebody enters a scene and they have a glass of milk, you can't be like, no, that's a peanut butter. It's like yes and, like you don't have to like the milk, you don't have to drink the milk, you could be lactose intolerant. Maybe the milk is like you put it on the floor and it's for a cat. Maybe you put it in some cookies, like, but you have to accept and just say, yes, okay, cool. Like that's your reality. You put it in the scene. It's a physical thing sitting here.
Right.
Yeah.
So just the acceptance, right?
Yeah.
The acceptance that other people can be in existence and don't have to be like you.
Yes. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for asking me to do this. It's been a blast.
Thank you for doing it. It was a great time. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
Until next time, we're out. Peace. Say bye.
Bye.